European leaders unite in Kyiv, a strong message of support for Ukraine. In a powerful display of solidarity, the leaders of the UK, France, Germany, and Poland gathered in Kyiv on Saturday to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy. This significant summit comes just a day after Russian President Vladimir Putin showcased his allies at a Victory Day parade in Red Square, highlighting the stark contrast in support for Ukraine amidst ongoing conflict. The discussions at this summit are crucial, focusing on a proposal from the US and European nations for a 30-day ceasefire in the ongoing war. If Russia refuses this offer, the leaders have indicated they are prepared to impose new sanctions together, although details are still being finalized, according to a French diplomatic source. This visit marks a historic moment, as it is the first time the leaders of these four nations have traveled together to Ukraine. In a joint statement, they expressed their commitment, saying, alongside the US, "We call on Russia to agree to a full and unconditional 30-day ceasefire to create the space for talks on a just and lasting peace." As their train rolled into Kyiv, the arrival was announced with the words, "Bravery Express," lighting up the platform. President Zelensky joined the leaders in paying tribute at a memorial in central Kyiv, honoring the brave Ukrainian soldiers who have lost their lives in this ongoing war. This visit comes at a pivotal time in the diplomatic landscape of Russia's prolonged conflict with Ukraine. US President Donald Trump is advocating for a swift peace, having shifted away from the policies of his predecessor since taking office in January. After a period of tension, including direct engagements with Russian officials and a temporary cut in military aid to Ukraine, the Trump administration has worked to mend relations with Kyiv, culminating in a hard-fought agreement on mineral resources. Trump's tone has notably changed, reflecting frustration with what Washington perceives as Putin's reluctance to agree to a ceasefire. He has threatened to escalate sanctions against Russia but has also warned that he might abandon peace efforts if no progress is made. Recently, he called for a 30-day ceasefire, to which Zelensky responded positively, indicating readiness to implement it immediately. The European Union has echoed this call for a ceasefire as well. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov stated that Russia is open to a 30-day ceasefire, but with certain conditions, suggesting that Western military support for Ukraine would need to cease during this period to avoid giving Ukraine an advantage. Meanwhile, Putin hosted Chinese President Xi Jinping and other leaders at a military parade in Red Square, celebrating the 80th anniversary of the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany, sending a clear message that he does not feel isolated on the world stage. On the same day, European ministers expressed their support for establishing a special tribunal to hold Putin and his officials accountable for crimes of aggression, aligning with Zelenskyy's recent criticisms of Putin's planned parade of bile and lies. As the summit approached, the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv issued a warning about a potential significant air attack in the coming days, advising citizens to be prepared for air raid sirens and to seek shelter if necessary. Andriy Yermak, Zelenskyy's chief of staff, emphasized the urgency of the situation, stating, "There is a lot of work to do, a lot of topics to discuss. We must end this war with a just peace. We must force Moscow to agree to a ceasefire." He shared photographs welcoming the leaders off the train, highlighting the importance of their visit. The leaders are expected to hold a news conference and connect virtually with other global leaders to discuss the formation of a coalition aimed at strengthening Ukraine's military capabilities post-conflict. This visit coincides with the final day of a ceasefire declared by Putin, which Ukraine has rejected as insincere, with both sides accusing each other of violations. Reports from a field hospital near the front lines in Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia region reveal that soldiers continue to arrive with combat injuries, underscoring the ongoing violence despite the declared ceasefire. A wounded soldier named Stanislav lamented, "There hasn't been any ceasefire, shelling has continued just as before, drones are flying just like before, the same with explosives being dropped. Nothing has changed at all." Zelensky conveyed to Trump during a recent phone call that a 30-day ceasefire would be a significant indicator of progress towards peace with Russia. The world watches closely as these leaders navigate this complex and critical moment in history.